Well, I'm in the shop with the Ford right now. I'll tell you the latest adventure. Here it is right here. Took the Ford out to gas it up and get some gas in it. And coming back, actually going out there, it was starting to sputter like it was running out of gas. But I nursed it to the gas station, and I probably should have turned around, but I nursed it to the gas station, put gas in it. Once I had gas in it, I couldn't get it started at all. And I thought, well, maybe get a tow or whatever. But I was determined to get it back, so I let it cool a little bit. And then what it was doing was that it was running and like sputtering. I put my foot on the clutch and let it idle for a minute, roll. As I was rolling, I was in third gear. And then let the clutch out and continued on. And after a little while, it would start to sputter again, go to and so put the foot on the clutch, and it progressively got worse and worse. By the time I got to the gas station, put gas in it, and then tried to start it, couldn't get it to start and continue to run. As soon as I stepped on the gas pedal, it would just die. So I let it cool. That was the problem, and I'm going to tell you what I've been doing, and hopefully I can get it fixed. You may be interested, you may not, but this is what was going on. So I ended up getting a tow, had it towed back to the shop here. And the first thing I did was in the shop when it wasn't running is I went ahead and pulled these two plugs right there, and no gas came out. So, okay, a pretty good indication it was a fuel problem, wasn't getting gas. I went ahead and took the fuel line off and hooked up a hose to this and just cranked it, and it was pumping gas, not gushing, but it was pumping okay. Okay, so got the fuel line hooked up to this hose, and this is what it looks like when it cranks. Okay. And so then I thought, okay. So I hooked this all back up, screwed this back in, fired it up. The bowl was full of gas. The bowl was full of gas, and so it looked like gas was at least getting up to here. And so I was suspecting that, it was a fuel pump, but it seemed to be pumping. I went ahead and hooked that back up, let it crank a little bit, put gas back in the carburetor. Thing fired up and just ran just fine. Dang. So now, at least, it looked like the pump was working again. A friend had suggested that maybe, even though this, as you could tell, this is a new carburetor, it's only been in here maybe a couple months, but, maybe there was something clogged in there. Wasn't sure. So I went ahead and drained the bowl again with those screws over on this side. And then I hooked this back up and cranked it with the screws out, and sure enough, gas would be dribbling out. And so it was pumping, and it looked like the float level was working okay. So I thought, all right, well, the pump seems to be working. So you can see here that I went ahead and pulled the carburetor. Even though it was new, I would open it up and see what it looked like inside, if there was any dirt. And here inside, you can see it is pretty clean. I didn't find any dirt at all. See right there, I added a inline filter, and it had not a lot of dirt, but it had really fine particles in it. And in the bottom of the bowl, there was some really fine, it was almost like dust, but it was dark. So I took that all out and cleaned that up. Here's the filter. Here's the filter I took out of the fuel line. You can see there's some dirt in it. So I'm sucking up some dirt. Whether that was enough to get past the filter and into the carburetor and cause a problem, I don't know. But we're going to replace this filter. Yeah, dirt. And then I thought, when I put it back together and hooked this up, I cranked it and it wasn't sucking any gas up into the bowl. And I thought, so I put a vacuum connection onto this line right here. The line. So I went ahead and hooked up a vacuum gauge to the tank side of the fuel pump to see how much it's sucking or what kind of, I have no idea what it should pull, but let's see what we get here. Well, that to me looks like it's pretty good. I don't know if it's as good as a new fuel pump, but at least I got a point of reference. So I've gotten a new replacement filter. I'll put that in there, but at least the pump seems to be sucking gas up, and it'll fill the bowl. And what I have is an intermittent problem. But clearly, I was out of gas, and there was no gas in the carburetor. So I think the next step would be actually to take this out and rebuild it or replace it. Okay. Well, my next step, since I didn't find any dirt in the carburetor and seems to be pumping gas out here and sucking gas from here, I'm going to go ahead and pull the fuel pump off. Looks like 2 bolts, and we'll take it apart and just see what it looks like inside, maybe rebuild it. I've never done this before. This should be fun. So I pulled the bowl out, and interesting that I got some dirt in there already. And I just had cleaned that all out. I'm wondering, maybe that fell down there from inside the fuel pump. All right, let's take the fuel pump out. Yeah, what I forgot to mention is that the other thing that I noticed is that when I was taking this apart, is that this fuel line was like finger tight. In other words, you see it wiggles a little bit, and I thought, well, maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe it wasn't was sucking some air through here. But even with it loose, I should just vacuum check again, and it was still pulling the same amount of vacuum. So it might have just loosened up, perhaps when I was taking the fuel filter out. I don't know. But I'll be sure to tighten that up and see if that helps. Well, like they say, nothing's ever as easy as it looks. I took out the 2 1/2-inch bolts, and oh, okay, it is easier than it looks. Have to, I guess, lift up and out. There it is. Okay, let's go check it out. Okay, so the pump is out. Let's take a quick look at it. See the underside. Looks a little dirty. And I guess there's a screen there. And that's where the push rod goes. Up and down, up and down. All right. Well, let's keep taking it apart. What the heck? We're this far. Well, I'm going to have to get a rebuild kit. One way or another. The cork gasket was pretty dried up. And here's the screen. Yeah, screen has seen better days, that's for sure. And whether or not this is the cause of the problem or not, but okay. A lot of crud around here. Let's keep going. Okay, it took a little tapping, and It was stuck together pretty good, but came apart. Doesn't look too bad. Nothing obvious. We'll go ahead and take those out and see. Yeah. Interesting. That's what the inside of a fuel pump looks like. All right, I took the valves out. And, you know, they don't look too bad. I don't see any obvious dirt or anything like that. Looks a little dirty, but nothing seriously wrong. At least it doesn't appear that way. So, just got to take the diaphragm out next. And I think in order to do that, we're going to have to punch that pin out. I think. We'll see. Okay, I got the diaphragm out. Came out pretty easily. Visual inspection, everything looks okay. You know, no clumps of dirt or anything like that. Here's the little actuator. I moved up and down. This was the pin. Just lightly tapped it out. It came out without much problem. Right through that hole there. Well, this is what the inside of a fuel pump looks like from a 35 flathead. Actually, it's a 38 flathead, but I'm gonna pull out that push rod too and just see. Maybe it is flattened or is not doing as much throw as it was before. But so far, nothing obviously wrong with this fuel pump. I mean, it was sucking and pumping. So I don't know if it's gonna, rebuilding it's gonna solve the problem or whatever, but it's an education just to see what this looks like inside. Okay, so it just took 2 bolts to take that out. See what this was on the top of the engine. See what it looks like inside. And with that off, I can now see the top of the push rod. So we'll pull that out. Wiggles a little bit. I don't know if that's a problem or not. Wiggles a little bit. There she is. Or he is. Okay. I can measure the length. I don't know if there's a speck on it or not. But doesn't look like anything's wrong with it. It's not flattened over on the ends. Okay, the journey continues. Okay, here's a real interesting little tidbit that I noticed when I was just playing with this. I like this up here. And look at this. This is actually comes off. Man, if that had come off when I was pulling it out, well, maybe it doesn't come all the way off. Can't do it with one hand. But that would have been not good if it came off and fell down into the engine. Okay, I also learned stuff a rag in there so nothing falls in there accidentally. That wouldn't be good. Well, the new fuel pump has arrived. Looks good. I was a little concerned with the throw here. I thought the old one actually moved a little bit more. But if I look at the old one, I'm mistaken. And the old one doesn't move much either. So that's good. I had called Speedway. The guys there were really, really nice, and they told me that it didn't move much. Doesn't take much. So I checked the movement of the new push rod in the engine. I'll show you a video of that. Yeah, I wanted to see how much that push rod moved when it was cranking. Not much. Okay, I went ahead and installed a new fuel pump and have it hooked up here to the vacuum gauge, because I'm just kind of curious if the new fuel pump draws any higher vacuum. So let's crank it and see what happens. Okay, last time we pulled about 4. Let's see what happens this time with the new pump. That's not a good sign. Okay, so I decided to rebuild the old one. Here's the rebuild kit. And there's some good videos of guys that have done this, and they'll show you all the steps. I'm not going to try and repeat it here. But here's my top half. I got the new check valves in here. Here's the bottom half. And this is a little tricky to get this, and rather than try and explain it, just Google and see how some of the other guys have done it. They did a good job of explaining it. Getting this bottom part was a little bit tricky, but got it done. So I'm going to put it back together now and see. And interesting, when I was looking at rebuild kits, a couple of guys, or one of the guys had said he had a Speedway fuel pump that it didn't work for him. So that's why he decided to do a rebuild. So I may be in the same boat here. But let's get this one together and see if it performs any better. Okay, it's all back together, and I'm very encouraged because listen to this. Here's. And if I hold my finger on the port here, I can feel the suction. And so, well, there, I feel the suction here. So definitely is an improvement. And I'm pretty sure that the fuel pump I put in the car now has got to come back out. Here's the Speedway, just for example, this is like, that's all it goes. No suction, no nothing. Okay, so here's the rebuilt fuel pump. This is on the tank side, the vacuum on the tank side, but after it's been run and pumped some gas, so here goes. So it's up there. It doesn't go back as fast. Maybe things are a little bit tighter. Okay, so I ran it, and that's my fuel pressure going into the carburetor. So that looks good. Okay, for those of you that are still sticking around, let's kind of sum up everything that's happened. The original problem was the car seemed to be starved for fuel, run out of gas, and that's why we had to end up towing it back to the shop. Rebuilt the carburetor, rebuilt the fuel pump, and tested the fuel pump pressure on the outbound side. As you saw, it was about 2 pounds, which is okay. The suction on the other side was maybe a 1 HG or whatever you want to call it. So there's some suction on that side. And it's running now. Now the thing that, what caused the original problem? Unfortunately, I can't say with absolute certainty. The old fuel pump, the screen was kind of dirty, kind of cruddy, so maybe that was just clogged. I had that additional filter in there, and I think that probably did not help the situation because there was some dirt coming up from the tank. So we'll see what happens. What I have done is I have taken the fuel filter out, and you can see there, just replace it. That's where that had the extra fuel filter. The original one's back in there, so it has the original look, and it starts up, and it's been running fine. So the thing is to take it out on the road and give it some miles and see if it's running any better now. Thanks for watching. One extra footnote is that Speedway fuel pump appears that it does actually work. That little lever that I was pushing up on just wasn't pushing hard enough. It was really, really stiff, and if you really cranked on that, it would move that diaphragm and it would suck. So I probably have an extra fuel pump now, but I do appreciate the support I got from the Speedway folks. Thanks for watching.